Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Hatha for Everybody with Jennifer on Thursdays. Thank you for being here today. Like I mentioned just a few moments ago before I started the recording, it's the end of the summer, the beginning of the fall. This is the new link for the new semester. I'm still in summer vacay mode. Plus, Greg has been having some frozen shoulder issues, so I thought we would have a yin restorative class today. And we'll get to the theme of the fall, which is the Yoga Sutras, next week. And we'll delve into that ancient text, the first written guidelines that told us the secrets of yoga. It's a great series. Hi, Kitty. Good morning. Kitty has joined us as well. Okay, so have your blocks, a blanket or two, and have a couple of maybe a cushion or something. Thank you for joining us, Kitty. And we'll start with a little bit of centering. So you could stay seated. You could lie back, but you may just want to stay seated for a few more moments. Take a few moments to settle into your space. Make sure you have everything you need. Your room is just so. Maybe take a few cleansing breaths. Close your eyes or soften your gaze downward. Cleansing breaths, meaning that we extend the exhales to be longer than the inhales. Those exhales could be with the mouth, they could be with the nose, they could be ujjayi, ocean breath. Those breaths are so good at helping us to wipe the slate clean and get rid of the stress that's been building up over the week, maybe from our night's sleep. Maybe we slept wrong. Maybe we didn't sleep enough. Maybe we slept too much. Note what's going on with your body this morning. And the various layers of your body. The obvious, the physical, and the less tangible, the energetic. From the more obvious energetic, like the breath and the heart, to the more subtle layers. Your thoughts, your emotions. What mood are you in this morning? And how will these things play a role in today's practice? Couple more breaths. And then as you're ready, let's lie back on the floor. If you want something for your head and neck, a little blanket, a little pillow, a little cushion, for your head and neck is fine, as long as your head and neck are neutral and your neck is not lifted, nor is it craning towards your chin, and you should be looking straight up the ceiling. So, like I said, today is a yin and restorative practice. So, we will be all on the floor today. And if at times you need a little bit of release movement, feel free to do that. So, we're starting reclining. Blocks and blankets nearby. Have everything right there by you, just in case you need them at a moment's notice. You never know. But you want them out of the way of your eventual shape, which will be that starfish pose. So as you settle into lying on the floor, maybe start with the knees bent to ease into any strain on that low back. And then as you're ready, extend your legs out, maybe kind of shake them out, and then start to bring them wide. Try not to go real wide at first because your hips might not be ready for going really wide. You know, the aspect of our yin practice that we want to keep in the forefront is that we ease into these positions. And arms come shoulder height eventually, once you've settled in on the lower half. And make sure they are indeed shoulder height. Make sure your hands are not higher than your shoulders, because that will put strain in your shoulders. We don't want to put too much into it. We just want to open them out. And let's start with the hands facing down, with an internal rotation to your shoulder joint to allow your shoulder capsule to gently open and release tension. So we want to use the tension to build the pose. Then we want to soften the tension so we're not putting too much into remaining here, which often happens in many of our yoga poses or things that we do off the mat, like things like, brushing your teeth or talking on the phone. We tend to hold our shoulders way up too close to our ears, meaning we are straining the muscles. Because remember, the muscle's main job is to move the bones. So if we're always lifting the bones where they don't belong in certain actions, the muscles get strained, the joints begin to pay a price. So this simple shape is a great way to start any yoga practice. We've been here a lot in the beginning for many of our practices this summer because of its aquatic theme. And it's a great spinal settler. And the openness in the hips and the shoulder compound the effects of the pose, allowing that spine to settle closer and closer to earth. Let's change the hand direction. Turn the hands facing up. Now we've got an outward rotation to the shoulders. In the front of the shoulder. So now, as we turn the hands out, the shoulder joints turn away from the spine. So that will change the sensations all along the line here, from shoulder to shoulder via that collarbone and chest and the upper back.
the trapezius muscles, the upper spine muscles that lead from the spine to the shoulders. Those are the most obvious. The deltoids, deeper within the body. Did I just say deltoids? I think I did.
Mhm.
I meant to say rhomboids, pardon me, rhomboids. Those are deeper spine muscles that lead from the upper spine to the shoulders. The deltoids are, on top of your shoulders and in the front and a little bit in the back. And you'll definitely feel the deltoids here opening up. Well, those are the main muscles. When we think of shoulder muscles, usually people think of the deltoids first. Even though, as I mentioned last week, there are 15 different muscles that lead to the shoulder capsule. So that's a lot can go wrong. Because not all those muscles are attached to different bones and play different roles in how the body moves. Let's go 5 more breaths here, one for each point of our 5 stars, 5-pointed star here. So when you're ready, focus on your breathing. Narrow in on that and deepen the inhales and lengthen the exhales. And see if you can draw lines up and down the length of these lines that we've created by our limbs. The legs, the arms, but also the spine and head. Maybe consider your spine as a 5th and 6th limb in your body, since it's so long. Feel that length in those limbs and how that can help settle the weight or the width and the space in your body. They could be ocean breath, ujjayi breath. So as you finish those 5 breaths, please take your time doing that. Start to bring a little bit of movement to the body, fingers, toes, hands and feet. And then bring the feet in, then bring the arms closer in. And notice how your body feels now that you brought your arms back in. I'm hoping that you feel a lot of difference in your shoulders, the front, the chest, and the actual shoulder joint and the back there. And then as you're ready, let's bend the knees, feet on the floor, and let's stay here for a couple of breaths. And then as you're ready, let's go into constructive rest, which means the feet go wide and we settle the knees together in the middle. And try to line up the feet with your hips and your shoulders so you've got your joints stacked even though we're not bearing weight and standing, we still want to keep those alignment principles in check. And notice the knees in the center along the line of your spine. See if you can draw those lines also. And these things provide actual physical stability and emotional stability to your pose. It keeps you present as well, keeps you mindful. And make sure you can feel the three corners of each foot, the heel and the balls of the big and little toes, so that you're not caving in, even though you've got the knees coming into the center. You're not caving into the inside arches of your feet, which have detrimental effects from the feet all the way up. So once you've found a good foundation in your constructive rest, note the name of that pose. Let's add our empty coat sleeves, extending the arms up to the sky and bending and crossing them, and bringing the hands down to find the shoulders first, the front and the sides, and then reach around towards the back. You're kind of looking for the shoulder blades, those big shoulder bones in the back. So your arms are pretty high. Your hands are high, so your arms are not way down here. You want to kind of crowd the face there, and note how the arms are in line with the spine and those knees. And if not, try to line that up. Settle into your basic shape, creating a good sound foundation so that you're not struggling and you're not unconsciously tensing the muscles now that you are safe and sound. So you can release, let go a little bit of something. You've used your know-how, the biomechanics of your body wisely. You have searched and found a version that you can support and maintain. You've got a prop under your head and neck if you so need it. You've taken care of those base needs so that you can let go and make space for new experiences, new ideas. And what's the experience here? This is a funky shape to be in. And its effects are profound. The more you give it, the more you'll get out of it. Release tensions, continue to soften without falling out of the shape. Notice the longer you hold these yin poses, the deeper the effects go, and the more you'll notice as you have time. And you're giving the body time to explore. What sensations do you feel from moment to moment, breath to breath? And has the obvious become way more subtle? Maybe you're noticing something in between two vertebrae that you never thought you would think about. Or the connection between your shoulder blade and your spine, which which is not direct, it's indirect, but it's there. We take our bodies for granted. Let's go a few more breaths here. Has the nature of this pose changed for you? Does it feel different? One or two more breaths. And then we'll switch arms. So notice how the pose feels at this point. Which arm is closer to your face? And you may simply switch arms, or if you want a little bit of movement, you can outstretch them, wriggle them. Just make sure that when you recross, rebend, you've made that change. Settle into that change. Check in on the bottom half. Do you still have everything you need? Note the differences. Note the similarities. Note the obvious. These are all things that I remind you, but they're pretty obvious. And then, you start to settle in. And maybe some sensations that weren't necessarily positive when you made that change, maybe they're starting to settle, which can be a good life lesson. Just because it doesn't feel good at first doesn't mean that it's wrong for you. Maybe it's just different. And you need to let go of some preconceived notions, ideas that are holding you back from exploring and fulfilling infinite possibilities within your life. So the first side, we spoke mostly about the physical. Let's focus more on the energetic here. So we'll hold this pose for about the same amount of time as at first. Let's focus mostly on the breath now. And we'll keep it simple, deepening and lengthening either half of the breath as you zero in on that nasal breathing, keeping you cool, calm, and collected, keeping you present. Facing this challenge in your parasympathetic nervous system. That's the mindset that is helping you to rise to this challenge. The struggles might be physical, they might be energetic, they might be emotional, maybe you're bored. That breath can keep you here. That one pointed focus that is so healthy for both body and mind. And how does this breath focus shape your experience on this side? Maybe you notice something. Maybe you learn something. Let's go a little longer here. One or two more breaths. Notice how things have progressed. My arms have gotten very close. They want to crash into my face, and that's a great sign. That means I really open up lots of space in my back. This is tremendous for your upper back, all those trapezius muscles that lead, or fibers that lead to your shoulders, your rhomboids. Let's take those arms off bit by bit out to the sides again into that starfish pose. Release the arms and bring the knees apart a little bit and take a few breaths, feel the effects. And then start to bring those arms a little closer in. And if you'd like a little movement in your body, you can do that. And hopefully you have everything nearby just in case you need them. I scooched my blanket a little bit further away because I felt like it was blocking you, but I'm going to bring it back over here. All right, so now let's do one more thing lying down. Let's do a supported twist, and we'll put a little twist to our twist. So I'm going to start with my knees to the right so you can see the knees. You can see what's going on. Oops. And let's start with the feet on the floor, knees bent. And again, those blocks and blankets nearby. You decide where you want your arms. So, our arms have been out pretty wide for a while. So if you want to bring them a little closer in, even though we did that empty coat sleeves, if you want something a little closer in, do that. Maybe support those knees. So put something under them because we will hold this for a while. And then as you're ready, turn your head to the opposite direction. And here's where shoulder height can add to problems within the body. So if you have your arms really high up and your hands are subconsciously over your shoulders and you're turning your head, that's kind of straining those muscles. Have those hands shoulder height, if not a little bit lower. So you're not straining the muscles as you turn that head. You're not straining the shoulders. There's a little bit of tension, but not so much that you're overdoing it. And you've picked your version, you've got the props and the twist I was telling you about. If you so desire, extend your legs. So your legs are extended rather than bent. We started with them bent. If it's there for you, extend them out and see if that leg length does something for the hip girdle, which can then affect your shoulder girdle, your twist. That might open things up and allow you to go a little deeper in your twist, a little bit deeper in your release. Give it some time. So if you get there and you immediately react and go, oh, this isn't for me, and go back, that's a reaction. And reactions are not mindful. And they're often violent in nature. You want to respond to these challenges, respond to the challenges. Feel and experience the changes. And make little subtle shifts to allow for your stability to be maintained. That allows you to be curious and explore. Let's go 5 more breaths in our supported twist here. So when you're ready, focus on your breathing, deepening and lengthening, maybe doing some ocean breath here. Maybe extending your exhales to be longer than your inhales. Twists are designed to allow us to release tension in the hips, the shoulders, the low back, the neck, even the chest. Because what goes on in the chest can affect our shoulders. We tend to think of our shoulders having more of a relation with our back than our chest. So once you have finished those 5 breaths, go ahead and bend the knees if they're still extended. And that makes it a lot easier to bring them back with them bent. And make sure you stay in the center for at least 5 breaths, because we were there for a while. Feel the differences between the 2 halves of the body. And not just the right and the left, but the upper and the lower and the front of the body and the back of the body. Notice how that twist affected. Notice how you feel a little bit more open and release and relax on one side. And then you're more likely to pay attention to the next experience and build a positive experience. So you go to the other side when you're ready, bit by bit. And stabilize each change. So that you approach the next change safely, mindfully. And once you've settled into the side, think about extending those legs for that not so common twist experience, at least in our class. Maybe you do this a lot. And as you extend the legs, you might find that you definitely need a prop, or you need to change something about that prop. And as you look over the opposite shoulder, notice that shoulder in relation to the other shoulder. So the shoulder closer to the earth is the side that we've brought the legs over, because that's kind of our base. So the other shoulder naturally is going to be kind of lifting up off the floor a little bit, and that's natural. But in our yoga, and as we spend time here, we try to start to coax it down a little bit so that it's becoming a foundational aspect as well. So the shoulder we're looking away from has that deeper earth connection. How can you make that happen in the other without forcing it, without causing problems? It takes time, it takes breath, it takes kindness and compassion. Meaning we don't want to rush it. It's okay if it doesn't all come all the way down. Maybe think about your warrior twos. As I see a lot of shoulder imbalances in warrior twos, as well as in these twists. So 5 more breaths here. Pressing the hip that is closer to the floor can also help you open up the shoulder. Pressing into the legs can help you open up the shoulder. These longly held poses give us a chance to find these new these connections and understand these very subtle connections. So when you have finished your 5 breaths, please take your time. Go ahead and bend the knees and press those feet into the floor to help you bring the legs back and bring that head back to the center, and take a couple of breaths and notice how you feel. Maybe you need a little bit of movement. And then when you're ready, let's turn to one side and take a few breaths on the side. And then when you're ready, let's press up into a seated position. And make sure your seat is stable. So you don't want to be struggling. So find a seat that works for you. Perhaps put some props into it so that you feel good and supported. And we'll do a few things. Actually, I think we'll just do one thing seated, and then we'll move on to another pose. So like I said today, our focus is shoulders and letting go of tensions in the shoulders, and head, neck, and shoulders are always really popular with most crowds, because we tend to hold a lot of tension in our shoulders. We tend to put too much in our shoulders. We tend to sit like this, for instance, and that's so unnecessary. We tend to brush our teeth like this. We tend to put too much into those shoulders, and not just the shoulders,
but the neck, the chest, the upper back, the collarbones, even the lower back and the belly start to pay a price. So there's so many different effects of putting too much in our shoulders, detrimental effects. So this next breath technique I've shown to you before. It's a great breath technique to help you release tension, mainly in the shoulders. It's called golden breath. And I'm certain I've shown it to you several times, but some of you may not have been here that day. And the way it works is we inhale through the nose, but then we exhale through the mouth. And as we exhale through the mouth, we make sure that the mouth is, that the lips are close together. They're almost sealed, but we've got a lot of tiny, tiny little space between the lips to let that exhale escape. And it's so tiny that the tongue has to help with pressing that exhale out. So it's like you're pressing the exhale out with the tongue. And I'm going to come a little bit closer because I think this breath technique begs for a close up. So you inhale through the nose and you part the lips barely and you press the tongue up against the teeth to press the exhale out. So you can probably barely see it. I have barely, my lips are just barely opening and my tongue is pressing up against the back of the teeth, and I'm actually making a little hissing sound as I push that breath out. I'll do one more close up. And what this breath technique does is that you're inhaling, you're taking a nice big breath, and you're letting out so little that it takes seemingly forever to let all that breath escape. It's almost as if someone is having to pull it out bit by bit, like a golden thread. They're just pulling that breath out. I'll do one more close up. So I'm not counting my breaths, the beats of my inhale and exhale, but I am, based on just observation, I feel like my exhale is probably taking 5, 6, maybe even 7 times longer than the inhale. So it really draws it out. So I'm going to go back into my seat and let's do that a few more times. Golden thread breath. And I brought that up today because it's great to release tension in the shoulders, and we can apply it to the rest of our practice. So let's do a few more. And as you do it, now that you've gotten the breath technique and had a few moments to play around with and experiment with it, notice what happens to your shoulders on each and every exhale. So let's do it a couple more times. If you need to change your seat, do so. And then as you're ready, let's do 3 more. Keep your focus on your shoulders.
So I hope you were able to feel the benefits of that breath technique. And the more you do it, the more you get into it, the more you start to play around with extending those exhales to be as long as they possibly can, because you do have power over regulating the timing for all of that. And the more you let go physically, the more you can let go of energetically and let go of uh, thoughts that might be holding you back. Okay, so now let's do a Sphinx pose. And then after Sphinx pose, we'll turn that into a bow tie pose, both of which can be really good for our shoulders and our neck. And you could always have a wall behind you if you'd like, for a little bit of extra support. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. I'm going to face the camera. And you could have a shallow blanket, nothing too thick, under your pelvis, because you don't want too much thickness, because that can strain your lower back. Sphinx, if you recall, we come on to our forearms. And you want to make sure that you align this pose correctly. And that's always, we do that with all of our yoga poses, but especially our yin poses, because we're going to hold this for a while. So if your elbows are out like this means you're collapsing into your shoulders, your elbows. You're not giving your body the support it deserves. You want to stack those joints, so the shoulders right above those elbows. So even the slightest bit of width in those elbows will destabilize your shoulder joints. And it'll mean that you're collapsing on the inner, so that you're putting more pressure on the inside edges and overusing the outside edges, creating imbalances. So the outside, the inside, the front and the back of your shoulder capsule, all of those muscles are working in a balanced fashion to keep you safe. So if you're up high and you're feeling, okay, I need a little bit of relief, you don't want to bring the shoulders out. It will bring you seemingly relief, but it's also going to do damage. Bring the arms forward, still keeping your shoulders and your elbows and even your wrists lined up. You have options. If you have the wall behind you, you could bring the feet up onto the wall. I'll move out of the way a little bit. So you could have those feet up. Spreading the fingers wide will ensure that you're using your forearm muscles. And engaging leg and glute muscles will protect that compressive action in the low back. So you have options. You can quiet your version, or you can bolster a bigger version. What support do you need? And I suggest that you try different versions. Because then you'll stay present and you'll stay curious, mindful, learning something about yourselves. I'm doing something new here, something I don't think I've ever done. I brought some frog legs to my Sphinx. So I've turned my feet out in the back. So the toes are pointing away from my midline, which is opening up my pelvis and my hips.
which makes for a different experience in my spine. And it feels kind of nice. Let's go 5 more breaths. So I'm going to quiet my version so I can focus solely on the breath. But you might want to bolster your version so you can get the most out of your Sphinx. What do you want? Keep those shoulders soft no matter what the version is. I just caught myself with my shoulders too close to my ears. Relax, let go, soften the shoulders. Soften the shoulders. Couple more breaths. And let's make our way down to a crocodile so we can take a little break of lifting up. Bend the elbows, stack the hands, bring the forehead on top of those hands, and take a couple of breaths. Maybe wriggle the hips, maybe move the legs a little bit. Let's take 3 or 4 more breaths. And then let's lift up again. And you might want to have a block for this. We'll do bow tie pose. So we start in that Sphinx. So we're back in that Sphinx. And then what you do is take your left arm and bring it through your right arm. And as you bring it through the right arm, line up the elbows. So as I bring the arm through, now I'm lining up the elbows. So I kind of have to move my arms a little bit. And then I bring my hands out to each side. So my elbows are lined up in the front, reminiscent of that empty coat sleeves. And my shoulders are even. So I'm lined up in the middle. Now, sometimes I see folks doing things like this. This is not bow tie. We don't want imbalance in the shoulders or the elbows. So if you need to be up higher to line up the elbows, go up higher to line up the elbows. If it's easier for you to line up the elbows coming down low, come down low. That is the main thing, that they're lined up and the shoulders are even. Bow tie pose. And then you can drop that head. And this is where that block can come in handy. You put the block in front of your elbows and the head lands on the block. So my elbows are still lined up. You can't see because of the block. So we're pretty low. The lower you can get to the earth, the more effect of the shoulder. So this would probably be a tough one for someone with a frozen shoulder. This would probably be this one might be pretty challenging for that condition, or if you have sore neck and shoulder issues in general. So go easy on this one. Let's stay here for just a couple more breaths. Do your best to find balance in your imbalance. This is an incredible release for the neck, especially. Now, if you're fighting it, you won't feel that release. So it's important you find a version. And the props are there for you. Let's go one more breath. And then you can lift up. Notice which arm is in front. So it should be the right arm. We brought the left arm through. So we'll come on back and shake it out. Again, find a nice low sphinx. The lower the sphinx, the closer to the earth you are for the position. But if you need to lift up a little bit higher to bring that arm through, that's fine. So now we're bringing the right arm through, and then we are lining up those elbows. And then as we line up the elbows, we line up the hands, lines, angles, attentiveness. And then you can perhaps drop that head once you have found your version. This one can be tough. So maybe just go to a 50% or a little bit further than that. Let's go a few more breaths here. I have found with this pose, the more time you give it, the more patience, the more luscious it can become, the more luxurious. That initial fight is generally because it just feels different, and we're asking our muscles to do things that are not as familiar to us, and we tend to fight the unfamiliar. How can you ease into it? Find familiar pathways that are similar in other poses. You can think about other poses to help you frame these experiences. And that can help you rise to these challenges. Okay, bit by bit, back up and out. Feel the effects of that pose. Let's come up into a table. Take a couple of breaths up in your table. Maybe you need a little bit of movement. Maybe just getting into the table was all the movement you needed. And the last thing we'll do is a supported reclining butterfly. And we've done this pose before in the past. I think we've done it very recently. So you could use 2 blocks and a blanket, or you could use cushions instead of blocks. I'm going to show you the version with the blocks, 2 blocks and a blanket. So I'm going to show you from the side. So first things first, the blocks will be there for our torso and our head. So we're going to have one block for our head and one block for our back. And the one for our back, we want it to be parallel to our spine. So we don't want it to cross the spine. We want it to be parallel to the spine. And we put that on the floor there, a couple of inches in front of the block that's there for the head. And then we sit in front of that lower back block. And again, it's going to be there. It's parallel to your spine and your thoracic spine, which means the part where your ribs attach. That's the part of the spine that will land on that block. So then we take a blanket and we take the blanket nice and long. So make the blanket as long as you can and as narrow as you can, like I have it here. And then you go into a butterfly pose with your legs, feet together, knees wide, and you put the center of the blanket on top of the feet. So then you have blanket on either end, and you roll up either end and put those under your knees or thighs there. So you could just put another set of blocks or a pillow under each knee. The main thing is that we've got support for the knees so that we're not fighting. The knees can release and relax. So once you've taken care of your knee support, then you can lie back. And again, your thoracic spine, your ribs land on the lower block, parallel to your spine. And then the other block is there for your head. And once you land, you might want to bring the block down a little bit lower. And you may need to kind of rearrange your blanket, your legs, your blocks. You want that support to be stable, yet pliable. So the blocks are stable, but you're not fighting them. You're able to kind of release around the blocks. There's your pliability. Supported reclining butterfly. And your feet might come a little apart here. They don't have to be pressing up towards one another. They can be if you want, but that might add strain to your ankles. So what allows you stability and integrity to the shape, but also allows you to release and let go. So you're not fighting your props. You're not fighting the shape, and you're not fighting your body. Release and let go. And here's where that golden thread breath can add another layer to the luxury of this pose. So if it's there for you, you know you're safe and sound and able to just let go and soften those shoulders and that face. Try a few rounds of that.
Notice the tiny little sensations that are undoubtedly creeping up, becoming a part of your experience. Tensions that are distracting you, tensions that you're letting go of, and you're feeling the release and the impact that it has on your emotions. Discoveries about the makeup of your body, observational discoveries. You want to avoid any judgmental discoveries. Open-hearted and open-minded. Open hearts and open minds tend to be more soft and relaxing and releasing on the body. It's difficult on the body to be mean. It creates stress on the body to be negative. And you may Shavasana here. So if you want to stay in this position, just stay here. Maybe readjust something, maybe make a tiny shift in your body and the pose. And if you rather come out, do so quietly, bringing the knees together and then rolling to one side off the blocks and your props and coming back to your back, and do so quietly, bit by bit, with as little disruption as possible. Tiny movements, tiny breaths, allowing you to settle into a Shavasana position. And maybe you're just staying in your supported butterfly. Because we know a shift has happened in our practice, maybe not a physical shift, because maybe we're still in this position, but there's an emotional and a mental shift. Okay, so this is it, the last part. Do I need a few cleansing breaths? Take the time. Quiet the body. Quiet the breath. Quiet the mind. And as you're ready, slowly begin to deepen your breath, building upon your energies, your awareness to what's going on around you, bending your knees, feet on the floor, couple of breaths there, rolling to one side. Do so really gently if you're coming off the blocks. And if you are still up on the blocks, spend a couple of extra breaths on the side. A couple extra breaths more than you normally would if you were just simply rolling to your side. So you really get used to being off the blocks and being on the side of the body. Take your time pressing back up, and we'll meet in whatever seated position feels right with whatever props feel right. I'm going to go with a caterpillar pose. My legs just kind of out front there, a little bit of casualness to their stability. Take a couple of breaths, feeling what it feels like to be seated, to be a little bit more active. Feel the effects of that restive, yin, contemplative, introspective practice. Those poses, those practices take a lot out of, or not take a lot, but they just demand something from our attentiveness. So just notice how you feel. And we'll bring our hands to heart center. And let's repeat the yogic prayer together. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be free from suffering. May all beings be safe. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free from suffering. Namaste. Thank you so much for your practice today. I will turn off the recording.